Hey folks, you're listening to the Java Easily podcast, episode number 7.
Java Easy. News, tutorials, tips. Everything you need to know as a beginner Java developer.
Hey again, welcome back to the podcast. I know it's been a while, but I wanted to jump in with a quick episode to let you know about a brand new course that I've just released. We've had a lot of fun putting this course together, and yeah, I just thought I'd basically reach out on this episode and just tell you a little bit about the course. So what is this course then? Well, the course is called Java Jumpstart, and I've pretty much designed this course to be a complete beginner's guide for absolute newcomers to Java. So the idea is that you can take a complete beginner, somebody who has literally no idea about Java, so hasn't done Java programming before, in fact hasn't done any form of programming before, and the course takes that person and teaches them the Java programming language without any fluff or padded out lessons or anything like that, but just basically the basics of what you need to know to bring that person up to a pretty reasonable level in Java programming. Java's an incredibly popular programming language. It's the most prevalent platform we have currently, because if you think about it, Java powers everything from, as I said before, the cell phone in your pocket with Android devices, right through to huge cloud-based e-commerce websites like Amazon, Netflix, Google, and pretty much if you have a language as powerful as that, or rather a platform as powerful as that, then number one, it's going to be incredibly popular in industry, which it is, of course. It's been the number one language now for quite some time. Python and JavaScript, they kind of like vie for position, but pretty much Java's the number one currently in industry, and it's going to stay that way for quite some time, I think. So there's that aspect. In other words, what's happening with Java in industry itself. But alongside that, of course, we've also got resources, articles, and YouTube videos, which are teaching that as well, which is good news because it means that a lot of people are talking about it. There's a lot of resources out there that you can use to be able to learn Java, get up to speed with Java, and take your knowledge to the next level. So that's only going to be good news. However, the problem I had, not really the problem to be honest, but the thing that I saw about most which try and teach Java to absolute beginners from first principles is that they either kind of assume that you know something already, or they kind of like teach it to you as if you're already, for want of a better phrase, a geek who has a, sort of assumed background in computer science, which obviously if you're a beginner you don't have. Or what I've found as well is that courses, they tend to mix up concepts. So, for example, when you get to an exercise in a particular section, some courses that I've found, what they do, they try and ask you to do a specific exercise, but they'd kind of combine elements or concepts from not just what they've just taught, but from future lessons as well. And it's kind of understandable that people will do that because Java, it's not really a slam dunk, an A to Z, learn this, then this, then this, then this, and boom, bada bing, you're a Java developer. It's very difficult really to isolate concepts one by one and teach them in a very step-by-step fashion and in a kind of an isolated fashion such that you can design exercises like that. So I found that issue with a lot of courses out there. And also another aspect as well was that you get a lot of, kind of courses which are either badly produced, they're kind of difficult to follow, difficult audio, maybe the explanation of concepts isn't very clear. And also the biggest problem I think is that explanations just weren't concise. So if you're a beginner, you really don't have time to absorb really roundabout long and bloated explanations of things. You just basically want to get to the absolute essence of what the concept is, understand it from first principles, and then apply it immediately afterwards, because that's really the best way to learn. So that was another thing that kind of prompted this course. And finally, a big one is a lot of people don't have time to absorb a course on a language or platform as large as Java. I mean, I don't know how you feel about online courses. For myself, when I get online courses, I also buy online courses to teach myself various different things that I need to know. So specifically in terms of online course production, for example, it's good for me to know about things like graphic design, video production, photography, digital marketing, those kind of things. But yeah, when I do online courses, I just basically want to take something that's maximum, maybe like a couple of hours, maybe 3 hours, if that, with very short, very targeted lessons which just focus on a very specific concept. And typically I won't do a full course anyway, I'll just buy a course for a few sections which cover the bits that I don't happen to know, and I'll just delve into those sections and kind of dip into it like that. And that's how I consume online courses. But if you're a beginner though, an absolute beginner, and you've never programmed before at all, and specifically if you're trying to learn Java, which let's face it, is actually pretty big and can seem a bit daunting at first, then the last thing you want to be presented with is, a kind of a masterclass style Java course with 70, 80 hours content, a lot of which as an immediate beginner you don't need. There are certain things in Java which, yeah, they're really great to know, but you don't need to know them straight away. And in fact, even presenting those kind of more advanced concepts straight away, if anything, it's going to either put people off or it's going to effectively polarize the student base, so the set of students, between either those who are inherently technical in terms of how they think or, what their aptitude might be. But it does that, which is probably, say, 15-20% of the people, but it does that at the expense of excluding, effectively, the rest of that student population. So with this course, Java for Beginners, we set out to address all of these different points. So we wanted to have a course which is concise in explanations, delivers just enough knowledge and concepts to be able to get you to the next level, where the next level is defined as being able to program to a reasonable degree in Java, but nothing too advanced, but just something to the level where you at least feel accomplished after you've taken a course and have the confidence to know the core foundational concepts behind the language. We wanted to create something that wasn't an overwhelming 70 or 80 hours worth of content covering everything the absolute A to Z of Java. We really just wanted to focus on creating a course which only taught the absolute core concepts that you need to be able to get to that level. And we did this at the exclusion of other areas of Java. So for example, multi-threading. There's nothing on multi-threading in this particular course. Although that's a core part of Java, it's completely not relevant to a beginner. It's difficult for a beginner to understand, and it's not needed. When you're just basically finding your way around how to program from first principles, you're learning about things like variables, conditionals, for loops, while loops, the basics of objects and classes, that kind of stuff. And you don't need to know about multi-threading because you don't need to know about high-performance programs which use multiple threads, or the implications of non-thread safe code that you write if you're developing web applications, that kind of stuff. You just don't need to know that. So there's no point bogging a person down with that kind of cognitive heaviness. It's just not productive for anybody. So that was another aspect. And the other thing we wanted to nail as well was, for me personally, I wanted to make sure that at no point did a student feel left behind. So I've done it before where I've taken a course and, you might get to like section 5 or 6 or something, or section 2 or 3 or whatever it is, and there's something that you just don't quite get, that you can't get, and if you haven't done the exercise which is required, then pretty much you're stuck, and that's it. That's as far as you get with that course. You've done 20% of the course and you can't get any further. So I didn't want to have that happen. And we've addressed that with this particular course, Java for Beginners. So what it does basically, we have a project, a fairly basic program in fact, and that's by design. We specifically didn't want to make it overly complicated for people to understand what it's trying to do. But we have a program that you develop section by section, and pretty much at the end of each section there's a challenge. And the challenge is basically just to code just the part of the application which relies on the concepts that we've just taught in that section. So in this way, you don't fall behind, you don't get lost. And also as well, not only do we do that, explaining in the challenge video at the end of each section what you've got to do, not only do we do that, but we also immediately afterwards show you exactly what I've done to code up the model solution. So you actually see kind of like an over-the-shoulder look, if you like, at what a professional would do to code up that particular part of the program. In addition, to save you getting completely lost, if you couldn't do the exercise, we also give you the actual code that I coded up at that point in the course. And that means that if for whatever reason you couldn't do that exercise, that part of the challenge, then you can just basically load that code up into your IDE, so load it up into IntelliJ IDEA, and then you're good to go for the next section 2. But from what I've seen, looking at the analytics, it's pretty good because I'm seeing that pretty much 100% of students have gone through all the videos, and have also even gone through, for the most part, the full length of each video, and that means that they're getting the exercises done, they're going through the challenge, and they're learning the material, which is fantastic because that's exactly what I wanted to have happen with this particular course. So yeah, that's the Java for Beginners course. It's available now. We launched it on Tuesday of this week. So at the time I'm recording this podcast, it's Friday the 10th of September 2021, and we did a launch on Tuesday of this week. We've got a ton of students already going through the course and getting good reviews on it as well, so it seems to be doing the trick for people, which is excellent. So stuff you get with the course, specifically, just to cover the features, it's 6.5 hours of content. We're covering all sorts of things you'd expect. So setting up, that's getting the JDK set up, configuring your environment for Java development, getting set up with an IDE as well. We've got some first steps we go through then as to how we actually create a project, what's inside a Java project, how we do that in the IDE. So it's very hands-on from the outset pretty much. And then we go through the various different concepts in Java. So variables, expressions, strings, conditionals, loops, methods, classes and objects, exceptions, and finally collections. Even touching upon more difficult to understand concepts as well that you still do need to know, such as the equals and the hashcode method. And then finally, we've got a frequently asked questions section specifically for Java beginners. So here we're answering questions like, what is Java? How is it different from other programming languages? Do you need to know how to program in other languages to be able to learn Java? What kind of computer do you need? Do you need to know math to become a coder? What can you do with Java? What tools do you need to write Java code and create apps? How do you use them? And probably most importantly as well, how do you get a job once you actually know Java? So a big premise of this course is it's basically addressing people who are either curious to see if they could learn to code in Java, but they're just not sure, It's addressing people who maybe they've tried to learn Java before and for whatever reason it just hasn't happened for them. It just hasn't clicked inside their head. And it's also addressing people who are maybe bored in their current career, they fancy a career change, and they want the quickest, simplest possible route to be able to decide if they want to take it further, and effectively to be like the first step on the journey as a professional software engineer. So that's who we're targeting. So complete beginners, absolute beginners, if you've coded in Java, if you've never programmed at all, if you have no idea what programming is even, or what it's about, but you've just heard that software engineering is pretty lucrative, which it is, it's a very well paid profession, and you fancy trying it out, you want to get your hands dirty and you want a practical course which helps you 110% along the way, then this is where you get with the Java for Beginners course. A few other things as well. There's also worksheets for each part of the challenge where we define kind of formally what you have to do for that particular part of the challenge. We've also got the solution sheets as well afterwards, which show you the code that's been written with commentary about why it was written that way or what we've used or how we've done it. And like I say, you get to have that kind of over-the-shoulder look at the model solution being coded up at the end of each section after you've attempted it. And you have the code as well to keep, to be able to load it up into an ID so you don't get lost along the way. So lots of stuff there, lots to take in, but to be honest, I think it's a really great course. It's been an absolute awesome experience. And yeah, I just wanted to put this podcast episode together to say that if you're really looking for a solution at how you can actually start getting to learn Java properly from first principles, and you're an absolute beginner, then yeah, you want to go check out the course. Now, if it turns out that you're not ready for that, you don't want to do a full course just yet, and you're not sure really whether you'd even like to jump in with both feet and get into Java if you're a complete newcomer, then what you could do instead is just go to the javaeasily.com website and download your free starter kit, your free guide to getting started with Java. This is a helpful PDF mini guide telling you how to get started with Java technology, and it's a great introduction to get you up and running with Java development. So yeah, check that out on the javaeasily.com website. Okay, well, thanks for taking the time to tune in and listen to this, I guess, kind of mini promotion for the course. Really appreciate that. And I'll be back shortly with some other podcast episodes, which I can then now finally get properly back into, because that's the reason that I was away for a fair few weeks while I was putting this course together. But yeah, we're back on track now. Have a great weekend. Happy Friday to everybody if you're listening on the day this is released. And otherwise, speak soon.